Welcome to another edition of EYe in Education. We're featuring the candidates for the Board of Education in the November 2nd election. And joining us for this program is Neil Claffey, a former teacher in the Nashua school system. Quite a resume. He taught in Nashua from 1989 going forward, and retired in June of 2021. And I guess you're looking for some new excitement. Welcome to the program, Neil.
Thank you for having me, and thank ETV for sponsoring this forum. It's going to be 11 candidates, and thank you so much. Yeah, I made a decision to run. It wasn't expected. I planned to retire over the winter. I made up my mind to retire. And I heard that there were a few people maybe stepping down. There'd be some vacancies, and at the same time, watching some of the events at the school board meetings, I was a little bit concerned about who would be taking their places.
So even after all those years in education, you're coming back for more, but you're going to be on this side of the table now.
That, like I said, that wasn't part of the plan. It was, it happened one night. I was watching a meeting, and my wife was upstairs because we tend to yell at the TV, and I screamed, "I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm going to run." This was in April, I believe.
And she's still talking to you.
Luckily, she's been active in the city. Our children went to school here, kindergarten through went to North Pennachuck, Charlotte Avenue. We've lived here almost 20 years. We care about the city.
And you were saying before we went on the air, there was a happenstance meeting at a job fair down in Massachusetts when then Assistant Superintendent John Shapita said, "Why don't you come up and take a look?"
Yes, he did. He, at the time, 1980, winter of 89, a little bit of a recession, and there were only 3 districts from New England. I had never set foot in Nashua. Met John, had my resume, and he said, "Why don't you come up to the campus?" And I was lucky enough to meet Don Marquis, Ron Jean, wonderful.
Great people. Yeah.
Great people, and I was lucky enough to get a job. I'll tell you one silly story, though. A young lady that I went to grad school with, Robin Griswold, was also competing for a job. So when I left my interview, she was sitting there waiting, and we had been in this small cohort group with other social studies teachers. And seeing her, seeing me, I thought I don't have a chance, but it turned out there were 4 openings, so that was it, and 30 years later.
It's history.
No, it was a great career.
What do you see as the 3 most pressing issues that this next Board of Education is going to have to tackle?
Oh, the top 3? I'd say the first one, personally, I want to make sure, I would want to ensure that the middle school projects are completed. That, from what I've been told, the new Elm Street, 4 years down the road. Completion of the other 2. I think the second one is we've got to get a superintendent. There's been upheaval, a little bit of a turnover at central office. The interim superintendent, he's doing the job now, but for some reason it didn't work out. And I think leadership really matters. And the third thing is we've got the custodial contract. They're at an impasse. The teacher's contract just expired. And I think we have to show our human capital, that we care about them, we value what they do. I think that we have to really show them that we entrust our children with teachers, paras, custodians, and to not have contracts, it can have an impact on, indirect impact on the morale.
How do you address the civility issue at the board meetings?
Well, as a teacher, I really like to generate a little bit of debate. And with this new divisive concepts thing, I think some teachers are afraid. But I think I managed that in the classroom okay. And I think that the board has done a tremendous job of maintaining an open forum and trying to keep the proceedings civil, even when there's disruption. So I think that we have to do what's best. We have to consider all the interests of all the stakeholders, not just, I don't want to say special interests, but I guess keeping a cool head, respecting one another. It's something that teachers are encouraged to do in the classrooms, and I think I would try to honor that as a board member.
You mentioned the superintendent search. The last one didn't work out. The candidate that had been deemed number 1 decided to withdraw. They didn't go with the runner-up. And do you think that this will impact the new search going forward? The people are going to be reluctant to put in because they'll say Nashua doesn't have their act together?
You mean as far as recruiting candidates
Yes.
goes? I'm afraid that it might. I'm definitely afraid that it might. And if we were talking earlier about previous superintendents. And I read an article, I think it was in the Union Leader, that just said, looking back, it was an article about the turnover, recent turnover. And Nashua has done better retaining superintendents than when they've recruited from within. So I think that we might be better off just seeing if there are people who have roots here in Nashua, who have experience and relationships in Nashua, who we could recruit for the position.
Yeah, gone are the days of the Ed Keefes, Barad Masseys, and even Joe Giulianos, who stayed for 10 plus years.
I know.
And brought some stability to the district. Another challenge, you mentioned the new middle school, and with that comes the redistricting, which is another tough nut for some. The process is ongoing now, and Truth in Advertising. I am a member of that committee working with Dr. Parker and a whole host of folks, and we're just in the preliminary stages. What would you like to see be presented to the board in generality, because you're going to have to, if you're elected, vote on it. In general terms, what would you like to see presented to do with the redistricting right?
I guess we'll talk about maybe somehow equity, looking at the socioeconomics. But I'm not privy to that information. I really haven't had a chance to look into that. But I would say that we would want to. I think we would want to see that this. It's represent the schools, to the best of our ability, are representative of the city as a whole, and so that we don't end with segregated schools. And neighborhoods sometimes socioeconomically they're homogeneous, but I think that I'm pretty sure, and you would know better than I do, that when the boundaries were being drawn for the two high schools, I think there was a lot of a commitment to making sure that one school wasn't perceived as being that school, and this is the school for them. Is that
yes, that's pretty much it. And also, with a few exceptions, each school was designed to have the basic floor plans.
Yes.
With some of the tech ed at north and some of the tech ed at south, and that's where the busing between schools resulted going forward. And similarly with the middle schools now, with the work at Pennachuck, the work at Fairgrounds, and the construction of the new one, they're all going to be pretty much equal.
Can I ask, when you say equal, you mean as far as
the square footage and the programming?
The physical space.
Yeah, the physical space. Yeah, and the other thing though is some people have said, well, you've lost your walk-in middle school with Elm Street going away, and do you consider going forward once the redistricting done? Is it going to be Pennachuck that's the walk-in? Consider it, or Fairgrounds? It's hard to say.
That is hard to say, and I look forward to seeing the research that's being done on that, and trying to come to a decision that is best for all. Best for all. I'm not. I think a lot of the candidates have children in the district. Our children are through the district. We're done with the district. So when I look at decisions like that, I don't think I'm going to bring a partisan or a personal bent to my analysis. I think I'm going to look at what I think is best for Nashua, for everyone. And I know that there are people that aren't really happy about the new location of the school, the neighbors there, and I think it'd be nice to have a downtown school. It would have been nice to have downtown Patriot Stadium in Boston, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
And it's changed. I mean, I went to Mount Pleasant. It was walkable. It was so walkable that I went home for lunch.
I did too, but this is down in Maryland. It was great. Yeah.
But that's all changed today, and the older schools, original elementary schools in Nashua, they've been upgraded, but it's not like it was when Nashua was 25,000 people. We're close to 90 now, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
The population has changed in terms of who's moved here, who's moved away. Why did you go into teaching?
Oh, I wasn't right.
Yeah, I just thought people might be asking, well, he's a teacher, of course he's going to be pro-teacher, but why did you go into teaching?
Well, after college, I didn't really I had an economics degree, but I wasn't thrilled with business. I got a job at the U.S. House of Representatives, and I thought I'd maybe look into politics. I have no ambition, by the way. This is something I just kind of for and done if I'm lucky enough to win. So I worked at the House, and I would often speak to high school groups from all over the country, upstairs in the visitors' galleries, about the House and about Congress, and I enjoyed it. And I had thought about maybe teaching later on in life. At the time, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, was a teacher, and he was just started his PhD program, and we talked. He loved it. He taught junior high school, and I was lucky to have a wonderful high school teacher myself, social studies teacher named Jim Kirkcaldy, who taught for almost 50 years. He just retired. So in the back of my mind, I thought some kind of public service, and I didn't feel strong enough to be a police officer. And it's been a great life, no regrets. And I was lucky that our older son taught at South with me for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
He was a math teacher. I'd see him in the hallway and think I was having a bad dream. Because it just, seeing what are you doing? You're not supposed to be in my space. So yeah, he taught for 2 years, and then he went back to Colorado. He wants to be a professor. So it's been I think, as I said, my father was a reporter, and I saw the stress that he was under. I never, ever thought I'd want to do that. But I guess I didn't come home miserable every night, because one of our sons went on to go into education.
So it's been a good run.
Yes, it has, yeah, and I just like to give back.
And you have already. You've done a lot of things in the community, junior biddy basketball and Cal Ripken League.
That was a while ago, and then a good friend of mine was the girls' tennis coach. We coached together for about 3 years. We lost a year because of COVID. Did some club advising. Yeah, and now I get to meet people delivering pizza for TJ's, which is great. So I don't feel like I'm losing touch with other people in the city.
What's the one thing you would like to say to the voters of Nashua who are watching here today on why they should vote for Neil Claffey?
Boy, I almost want to say, if I run into former students who are now raising their families here, and I think rather than asking me, if you happen to know somebody who went to the high school and maybe had me or knows me, I'd prefer ask them what they think and whether they'd support me. And I think I'd appreciate your vote November 2nd. No matter if you don't support me, I think it's still I tried teaching civics for 30 years. I always try to get students to think about reasons to get out there, no matter what they think of candidates. I think there's a lesser evil. If you're not thrilled with me, well, maybe I'm not as bad as some of the others. There are 11 running. And I think about the people that have meant a lot in my life here in Nashua, and I think about a gentleman who graduated, I think, in 1953. I just talked to him for a little bit, asked him to put a sign up. He lives across from Amherst Street School, Mr. Stanley Stanches. Talked to him for a long time about Nashua's history, and I think these people invested their lives here, and I've invested 30 years here, and I hope to just have 4 more to do what I think is best for everyone.
Well, we want to wish you luck, and thank you for putting yourself up there to
Thanks for having
run
me.
for the board, and hopefully people will go out and vote on November 2nd.
I hope so too.
We've been talking to Neil Claffey, candidate for the Board of Education in the November 2nd municipal election. This has been a special edition of EYe on Education. I'm Ed Lecious, and we'll see you next time.